Alright guys, here in this video I want to talk about a little deep information which was being channeled like maybe a year ago by now, and I decided to do a drawing actually and some mathematics. The only thing is I'm not prepared in this video, so I'm not prepared with the actual formulas and anything, but just stay tuned and watch this video. I'll show you a couple interesting things about the life as virtual reality, and this information actually blew my mind a little bit from the channeling, and I just wanted to share you because I think I didn't share it yet on English. So here is my countryside. I do lots of meditations here, but we will look at some drawings, and I'm not sure whether I could actually show you. Oh, okay, let's do it like this, sideways. uh, so actually I'm pretty happy to see you guys. Well, actually, I don't see you, but still pretty happy to do this video. So the information when we started to do channel was that actually life itself is built from mathematical precision, and yet it also describes the infinity of the universe. And before the information was actually coming about the reality state, it was coming through the way how life actually is. And I'll show you. All the kids went away, left a complete mess in my room, but I don't mind about it. So, and this information also implied, this information also applied to DNA. So, now before we consider anything, the most significant information that this information told me was that universe doesn't consume any space at all. Now, when we look upon DNA, for example, this is an ordinary seed, and roots grow down. For example, a flower, and then something grows up and spreads into multiple and aspects, and then does create a flower. And this could be the soil. This could be something the soil. So the overall aspect, if you want to create something on a computer program, this will require you unique designs, unique architectures, textures, and maybe you will spend a lot of time designing this unique tree, flower, or whatever it is. Let's say just design. Now, but when you talk about DNA, I'll just write it on top. DNA mathematics apply to, there is a seed, and this seed, for example, consists of mathematical formula. I'll write the idea. I have actually never spent time to precise this formula, but for example, variable x could be energy, and this could be energy, and this is the only thing that is randomly changing all the time. Now, if you look upon, if we look upon something to grow, then energy could be just the water amount here. So basically, it could be something around, let's say 0.5 to 1. It doesn't matter. It can be some sort of a number which applies to a variable called energy. Then there is next, for example, y. That could be splitting point. Split. Let's call this split. It's a ratio-based number. It can be from 1.1 to 1, but it doesn't matter. These are just numbers. And then there could be, let's say, z, which basically could be growth speed. Grow speed, which also could be some number from 1.2, let's say 1. Okay, so there in DNA, there is only a couple of variables. Basically, in DNA itself, there is no energy variable as such. This is like the base where the plant actually grows. Split and growth speed is also in the is only in DNA. And there is another variable which is also not affected, which is also not controlled by the DNA formula itself. It's time. And time is just a number. Let's say from the beginning of the universe, time is zero. That's when the universe has begun. And every second or microsecond further, times equals something. For example, every second is just one. So the next second, after 1 second, there will be two. So anyway, it's a number that applies how many seconds have started before the beginning. For example, let's use 100, like 100 seconds from the beginning right now. So now we have no design. We don't need to have design. Basically, DNA only consists of these two numbers. Let's say split and growth speed. And there is another number we can add to it that can be, let's say, D, like dimension. And it can be any number. It can be from 1 to, let's say, 100. So now let's look how this things actually work, how this thing works. So basically, they apply that universe is dual, which basically means that everything will go on both sides. So basically, uh, uh, at the first second, now let's start counting. 1 second, 1 second equals growth speed. Let's say growth speed will be 1 row, and split, which basically means when a split will happen. So if we grow at this 1 second, let's use 2 rows just to make a little bit further. The seed starts growing. Let's use 3 just because it will start using so much space. So and then what happens is after at 1 second this variable grows up. Then a splitting ratio, how many dimensions we have. So basically we, for example, use, let's say, dimension as 3. So basically we split up into 3 dimensions. And this is the beginning. And now the next second is happening. We split up into 3 dimensions. Now the thing is, what happens is the energy applies times the growth speed. So basically, energy times growth speed means the more energy there is, the faster it will grow, right? And now the split means how much energy we split into these 3 dimensions right now. So basically, we draw up 3 rows. Now the energy is split into 3 separate rows. So basically, that's instantly. It will split up into 3 separate energies. So what it means is the next dimension will grow a little bit slower, and the same applies to roots. Only thing is that the roots have a different resistance because it's soil. So basically, it will grow much lower. Not that high, much lower. So this is already the second. No, but the time is relative right now. It's just showing the mathematical formula, and then we'll get into how actually the universe is a virtual reality. So the next thing is we grow the next second. It grows 3 times slower because our energy is less. So the next split is, I'll show you a little bit closer right now. Right. So the next split is another 3 rows, another 3 splits, and they are from the ratio again 1/3 of the energy. Now it's 1/9 of the actual energy it has. So it splits up into into another parts. So this is already the third second. Now let's go to the 4th second. The 4th second splits all the same energy into yet smaller 3 shreds or branches, or whatever you call it. And it is, each of these branches, 1/3 of the previous, and this is 1/3 of the previous, and this is 1/3 of the previous. So, and when you start actually drawing these DNA structures, you become to notice that these look alike like things we actually see in our nature. And this is the information what the beings are telling me, that its universe is made from mathematics, and I actually drew a computer program that designs these automatically, and just by changing these variables, these only 3 variables it has, you get completely different layouts. You can get, this is like a small plant, then you get something like a flower, then you get something completely different. So the funniest thing is how these numbers play out, how these when changing these numbers, they point out, and this is 2-dimension. Basically, this is a flower. I don't know how it's called in English. In Latvian, it's called pienina, or suņburkšķis also, but I don't know how it's in English. It's a yellow flower. And the interesting thing is, you can mess up these numbers in totally different shapes, and you get a really beautiful flowers or trees or whatever it's starting growing. Now, when we look upon something else like a pine tree, it grows long, like a tree. It grows, no, for example, roots. It grows long, but its splitting point is really small, and thus it grows only small branches to the sides. It has like a splitting point, which is really long, but the energy that splits is really small. So when you get something like a pine tree, only thing, it starts shredding more and more on the top, but still, nonetheless, you get the idea how actually the trees and anything is grown. And for example, then you start looking upon something that would be a really small, really large in dimensions, but really small in height. That plays out. So the greater the dimension, the smaller the tree will be, because it will split its energy to the sides. The smaller dimension, the higher the tree will be, because it will split so less energy to the sides. So basically, if you look again to something that has a higher dimension, would be something like a bush. It grows, let's say, a small something, and then it splits into many fields, and then it splits into many fields again, and many again, and then you get something like evolution. I think the same will apply to roots itself, and basically you get a really small but dimensionally spreaded, intensely spreaded bush. Now another thing is really interesting. If you take a one branch, like let's say from a tree, you take, for example, this branch right here, it will be really identical to any other branch like right here. Now keep in mind, this is a 2-dimensional, but if you go outside and take a branch, it will be, by its angles, by its proportions of the size, will be really similar to any other of the branches that we have right here. Even this branch would be similar to this branch right here. And this branch would be similar to the whole tree itself. So this is again how the same simple formula applies to something like a DNA mathematical formula. Now another thing what the beings told in the channeling was really interesting. They said that when you start splitting, let's say you want to split, let's say 2 splitted by 1, you get 2. So basically you will get 2 side branches growing out. And then at some point you come that it's precisely 2. Or basically 3 divided by 1 or 6 divided by 2, you get precise numbers. But in universe or in reality, the things are created a little bit differently. They are created like 3 times 2, and you get like something like 1.66666, etc. So this applies to that actually the growth itself will never stop. It's infinite. So the beings are telling also that on your life, nothing will ever stop growing. Nothing will stop growing. It will reach its energy limits, and then it will start destroying itself. Because imagine the tree will want to grow a little bit more, then a little bit more, then a little bit more, then a little bit more, and all of a sudden the energy isn't sufficient to supply the expanding growth that the flower or the DNA seed is actually willing, or the tree is actually willing to get. It's an infinite. It's an infinite growing model that will never stop growing. So, and these are these Fibonacci numbers, what I understood. Fibonacci numbers are numbers that actually do not precisely divide with each other. They always have an infinite ending at the beginning behind dot. So now we will get to the most interesting part. So this is just the introduction. By the way, I see there are a couple of people online. If you have any questions, you can write them down. So now we get to a really, really interesting part. And also DNA can be applied like after we have, let's say, X number of dimensions. Let's say we have right here now as branches 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can calculate them. 3 times 3 equals 9 times 3 equals 27. So if we have 27 of branches, let's say branches, let's say create another seed, a new seed, let's say, for example, apples. And then on the dimension create apples, let's say, create a new seed apples, and does then full of apples on the 27th branch. So it's like on the etc. Dimension split or whatever. It can be applied anyway. So basically, it's a really, really simple formula. So basically, now when you think about this also, is that if we think about the variable, which is energy, which is the wet, which is basically, imagine there's some wet here. And there is some energy also as sun shining upon this drawing, this beautiful messed up drawing already. So one tree has greater wetness, more sun, thus the energy variable changes its overall growing patterns. And then again, soil wetness, it changes its overall growing patterns. For example, what it means is that all and every DNA will have a unique and a completely distinctive look because it has a different energy variable, a completely different energy variable. Not know the same sun angles or wetness will be the same as the plant on the left or the plant on the right, because one plant maybe is, for example, this tree is covering the sun on this plant or drinking too much water from it, and etc. So okay, so let's get to the deepest part, which is basically our universe and our virtual reality, and it's a little bit more advanced, but yet also very interesting. So imagine the planet Earth as a DNA. Let's call it Earth. Let's just put it E right there. It has a DNA of its growing patterns. It can be maybe a little bit complex, a little bit difficult. I have not spent too much time thinking about complicated DNAs or channeling them, but the idea itself is really interesting. So, for example, for example, something appeared on the camera screen. Just make it disappear. Okay. So, for example, time grows, the planet grows a little bit as well, everything starts splitting, water is starting to come out, everything is growing. The planet gets this big after, let's say, trillions of seconds. Sorry for my inappropriate drawing. The planet gets really, really big after some trillions of seconds, so like basically time. So after the billions of seconds, the aliens or whatever starts, or the planet itself has a DNA with, let's say, a little bit of a soil, some small DNAs as such are being implanted on the planet. So basically, something starts growing, some trees starts growing on this planet, some flowers maybe start growing on this planet, and etc. Something starts growing on this beautiful, beautiful planet of ours. and the sun starts shining somewhere here, and what now is happening that throughout all that uh, amplifying of the time, every small cell is being grown a step further. Every small cell is grown a little bit further. So the sun rotates, everything grows, 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 grows. By 1 second, it's like amplified by, it's like multiplied with time. For example, DNA times time. And the greater the number is, the farther everything has multiplied itself and grown itself. So if we put here 1, everything returns to its core at the beginning. If you put like 100 here, like 100 seconds from it, like everything is a little bit grown further. So the time is actually multiplier for the DNA code itself. So basically, universe itself is, or the planet itself in this case, is just a DNA formula which is multiplied by time. So when you remember this one right here, we multiplied time 1 time, and then there was dimension splitting into 3. Then we multiplied, added 1 more second, and then multiplied with the DNA, and it was already split into another 3 dimensions, etc., 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 etc. So the more we add time, the more we actually grow our DNA model. So we can basically add, like, if this would be a virtual reality, we could basically add like 1,000 or any number here, and thus the mathematical formula will just calculate itself, and thus if you had 100,000, big planet, many things growing up on it, sun rotating around. So it's no problem. Just change one of these variables. Either you change the DNA, which is basically the matrix, or you change the time, which is basically the multiplier. I hope this by now it's understandable. But what thing happens right here? The ability for the DNA to actually adjust itself is like, for example, one tree seed decided that we grow a little bit better if we change the DNA itself, decided to change the growing splittage or something to a different number, let's say 1.1.555 dots or to something. It just changed, the DNA itself changes a little bit because we decided that it grows a little bit more efficiency. If we, for example, if the sun is here, we grow a little bit more efficient if we grow longer, because then we get more energy in the sun, we are closer to the sun. Or basically, if we grow our roots longer, we have more water because we have depletion of water. So basically what happens, the DNA adjusts itself a little bit compared to the surrounding environment, what's there. So basically, self-learning or self-adjustments the DNA can have, it also could be applied to the formula. And it could be applied to the formula really easy. If this branch has more sun, add more energy to this branch itself. If this branch grows and has more sun, apply energy to this branch a little bit more than the others. So it's really simple and really easy. It's simple mathematics by now. So, but what then happens is, if DNA start to multiply by itself, manipulate itself, change itself, then after some period of the time, there can be really unpredictable or maybe predictable changes that can occur. For example, one branch decides they want to be really tall, the other really small, the next one wider, the longer and shorter. They start doing and messing things up pretty and tremendously. But what then happens is it's not random, it's not something random. Random is pure mathematics or sacred mathematics. So, but a random things can start occurring. It creates the universe a really amazement that actually it's by its mathematical nature itself, it's created to be unpredictable and yet never boring, because the more they start changing each other, the more unpredicted never before happened things or completely unique things start to form in life. Never the same tree, never the same river, never the same anything. Everything is completely unique because the patterns themselves are completely unique. Sun never shines in the same place as it used to be. Water is never in the same ounce as it used to be. Nothing is in the same or what has been in the same. And this is the uniqueness, the unicality of the universe or the planet Earth itself. So let's carry on a little bit. Okay, so basically, after some point of time, complete random things start to occur. Complete random things start to occur. There can be, let's say, new species, new DNA structures occur. Maybe the DNA can mix to each other, or maybe aliens come and start mixing DNA or adjusting the DNA to each other, or maybe start creating human life forms, and etc. and etc. etc. But the really interesting thing is when you start putting the more numbers you start putting here, the bigger and the more beautiful planet you will get right here, because everything will grow, 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 grow. And when you start dividing and taking these numbers back, you return back in time. And universe doesn't have this all information stored. It has only the DNA matrix variable and the time variable. It has only these two variables to create a reality. And thus when you come into this reality, you have another variable. So now we have already DNA or matrix times time times location. Or maybe location can be divided, but nonetheless, a location is another number. And from all we know, location can be applied into many things, and they can be calculated in many things. Like, for example, geological location, like I mean, like GPS signals. They have XY locations only, but it's nonetheless it's only a number. So let's just consider the location only a number. For example, you uh, you have this formula, and you decide you want to enter like the time of 9,905 year, and the location is, for example, 10,250. For example, it could be XYZ. It means like 10 degrees somewhere here. Y means like 20 degrees somewhere here, and Z means altitude, for example, somewhere here. So it doesn't matter. It's just the idea. So, and pop, you're there, and the things that you see here are being created instantly for you from this formula. And every minute or second or whatever you have it there, time applies by +1 second. Or microsecond or nanosecond, doesn't matter. Time applies +1 second. It's like a new frame is created. And then you have the vision of, hey, something is going on. Hey, it's going on. And then you start moving and the coordinates change. And thus then the overall formula creates for you a new three-dimensional image being calculated from these three variables. So basically what we are having right here, we're having like a formula that if you want to enter this reality, you have a formula that creates reality for you. It's never stored, it's never saved. If you want to enter back to this reality, you just enter these numbers. If you even go in time, even you go forth and back in time, you just change these variables and pop, you're there. That's something like in our astral travel or dream states what we are experiencing. We are experiencing that our soul goes out of the body and just changes this variable and location and pop, we're somewhere else in a completely different universe and different place. And these tunnels or these movement cessations which we are experiencing is just, okay, we want to go there, so the time goes do 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 do, and we are experiencing a strong and a fast movement. But it's just the visionary, what I think is the visionary interpretation of fast fast mathematical manipulations, like etc. Like so, like an effect of fast formula recalculation. So yeah, and now let's get to a couple of I forgot already. I just had the idea which I want to share again. Also, now we can get to other interesting facts. For example, you as a body. Let's just try to one-handedly drew a human body, or a slender man, doesn't matter. I just drew a beautiful, and let's drew a tunnel over it. He's spiritually connected with the source. With the source, he has a tunnel over his head with a beautiful. Just kidding. Um, so you as a DNA also has a DNA formula, and your soul has a formula. So SNA, so soul formula. SNA could be your emotions, your uniqueality, basically. Fears equals, for example, this fellow right here is really fearful. So it has a 30, or not 30, like a 95% of fears. Joy, he has like 25% of joy. And for example, love, he has a strong love of anything, everything around. So basically has a DNA, soul DNA with these qualities. So his energy is split into these qualities. Now let's see what could happen if we apply also this variable to the formula. So it means that our unique personality also creates a reality with more fears, not so much joy, and huge love around us. So, what it means is we can actually change our soul quality, how we react to things. We can actually, and that's many times known, we can actually change the idea how we feel. We can change the idea how whether we're laughter or whether joy or whether we're fears. And thus then it can completely change the reality which we perceive by a simple idea of a virtual reality formula. So these, like, let's say, secrets truly are, if you look at numbers, if you look at formulas, if you look at mathematics, these things completely make sense from this perspective if you look at to it. If a universe is truly a virtual reality, and thus then it's a really simple and yet also a funny reality. So everybody is unique, and that's how it works. But we have the choice to change our, let's say, qualities or energy, to change our experience in this reality. So this is another interesting thing. But there is another yet more interesting thing, which is the infinity, or the number what you will see many times, infinite. Infinite reality. And this is absolutely true. Universe, if such a formula from the channeling does exist, or the idea of such a formula, we can definitely create it, but the universe then is definitely infinite. It's a game, so to speak. So imagine right now we have a DNA of and time and location, but let's put just a couple of numbers to it. Just let's say put a couple of random numbers. Let's say DNA is 10, time could be, let's say, 25. That's like 250. And our location, let's just think about location as where we are, uh, like, uh, I mean, how deep are we looking into things? Let's say you're looking through this mobile phone, and you're looking, let's say, 10 centimeters from, or 20 centimeters from the paper. Now would be 5 centimeters. Now would be 1 or 2 centimeters, right? So let's just look at the distance. Let's call it like distance. So distance is 10. And what do we get? We have like 2,500 approximately. Oh, sorry, one zero too much. Okay, but then you wanna increase your distance, and you are like, again, a bit smaller. You're 10 times 25 times, let's say, increase your distance to 1,010. Um, of course, there are commas and everything, but just this is just a simple explanation. Maybe you're 1,000 kilometers above the air, or maybe a million kilometers away. Then what you have is 25, 0, 2, 5, 0, 0, or something like this. I don't know exactly. The thing is, the reality starts looking similar and the same. So what it means is, if we start looking also closer into things, we will have 0.1, 0, 0, 0.1. The reality will look the same. The numbers are the same. And for example, if we are really closer, they're completely unique, they're different, but something is really the same. So, for example, whether we look from a galaxy, for example, we have the sun, we have something rotating around, this is the Earth, there's Mars, and etc. And then we start looking closer and closer and closer and much, 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 much closer into things. We start seeing atoms, something rotating around it, and then another closer, we start seeing again something similar to planetary system. And then we start looking closer and closer and closer, we will start seeing the same patterns over and over again, just because the same formula is being applied and multiplied only by the scale or by the distance. Where are we looking from? So if we look from this point of view, then it lays out and puts out that basically this universe is smartly, divinely, mathematically created. And thus I totally agree with the channeling, because I don't I really like channeling informations to me as much as to many of followers as well. But it definitely points out that evidence of how you can actually create a virtual reality. All you need is good with mathematics. You need the matrix, in this case a DNA. Sorry, it was blurred out, I didn't see. All you need DNA times time times location. Like location. And then you get a formula. Now, this is just a simple formula. Then in science, it's already used in multiple ways in different scenarios, especially the fast Fourier and transform algorithms and everything. So knowing this, how you can apply it and working with this, you can actually also create computer games. And now imagine, now it's the end of the seminar. Now just imagine you have created a formula with a matrix. Let's say a matrix can be this DNA structure or any sort. I haven't yet spent so much time thinking about it, how I can actually recreate it. But then when I look at trees and flowers or bushes around, actually we can go down. I can show you. Yeah, let's go down. That will be interesting. I'll take the camera. So when you actually think about this, it's really interesting. It's really interesting. Wait, I'll go down the stairs. When you start looking at trees and everything, let's go somewhere where it's not so shiny. When you start looking at trees, uh, so many branches right here, but you can see it splits into two, and then it splits again, and 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 it just splits and splits and splits, and from there's no clean. Everything is really messed right here. But Yeah, you can look here. Uh, this split is very similar to this split, and yet it applies. I don't want to break any branches right here, and yet it applies to many things. All right, here also. Uh, very. So you can see these patterns. Identical split, identical left, identical right, identical left, and then it splits again, left, right, and you can create an actual formula to reproduce this in a simulation. To reproduce now, imagine you being in such a, let's say, simulation. Imagine, and here's a huge bush right here also with splits and splits and splits and splits and splits. Right here, you see this split, this split, this split. Really, really. Anyway, so imagine you're being in a computer simulation or a game. You would want to create a game, and there are, for example, you want to incarnate in this game, and there is like, uh, you just enter random numbers like 1,000, 5,000, 300, but the same matrix applies, the same DNA applies to it. And you enter a random location, you want to see what's going on there, and just poof, this computer game creates a reality for you. And because of these mathematics, everything will look as so real as the life, because it's the same mathematical formulas. And then you're inside and you're like, wow, crazy, crazy, crazy. It's so fun, it's so interesting. Now you want to change time from 1,000 to 10,000, like much further, but the same location, and you want to watch it lively, and you just observe it lively, everything multiplies and changes and changes and changes, and then you're okay, I'm here. And you say, wow, how this changed everything. But the thing is, you cannot predict how it will go. You can predict, you have a formula and then you just multiply, but normally you cannot expect how these things would end up, how these things would evolve. You cannot expect that. And then, like the Enrico was telling me, he enters this reality and he's like in such a huge amazement. It's such a huge joy of everything's around is so amazing, never seen before, unique, and wow. And he just calls some of his friends, just enter these coordinates, just enter these coordinates, and he just enters those coordinates, and he appears to him at the left side, and he just says, "Hey, do you see everything? This is so amazing." And the friend says, "Yes, but I have also yet another interesting coordinates." And they're like, "Okay, let's go there." And they enter like a reality of 1 trillion numbers somewhere in the future, and there's like spaceships, starships, and there's like everything has changed completely and dramatically. So so yeah, this is I think this is one of the most interesting and yet for me mind-blowing informations that I have received through channeling. And if you have, I see there are a couple of people online. If you have any questions, you can write them, but I'm not sure. A live chat. No questions here. I'm not sure whether, because sometimes YouTube doesn't show the comments or anything. So maybe I'm not sure if I do actually see your comments. So yeah. So next greeting to you is, it's a really beautiful weather, and summer here is finally coming, and meditational minds, meditational things are also coming. So let's go back to our desk and let's just wait for some questions. Okay. I hope this video brought some insights. I hope this video gave some. I know that technical languages. Oh yes, it's not the common language for everybody, but when you start thinking about this, it actually answers so many questions. So, nevertheless, enjoy this amazing and exciting experience nonetheless. I have a really, really great time. See you guys on another video. Huge something. I'll just step aside and watch live stream of a big, big. Paldies, Matīs. Of a big. I don't know how they are called in English, but these guys fly in the room, fly out, and compared to the smaller insects, and these actually know how to fly actually out. The the small ones fly in, they hit the glass several, maybe hundreds of times, and then they fly out. These babies, these big ones, they actually sometimes fly in, and they know the trajectory to actually fly out instantly. So anyway, let it be as it is, and then see you guys soon on some other videos.